All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. I'm always very hesitant to do a solo podcast. It takes a lot for me to actually get on here and commit to doing it. But sometimes, you just got to hop on. You got to share what you're feeling. And I feel like right now we're very much in a time where a lot of people are going through that dark place, if you will, the reflection that we have of the world. If we look at the world, we look in our communities, we look at the people around us, we see darkness, we see chaos. We are attracting in turmoil, trauma, pain, whatever it might be. That is a reflection of our own inner state of awareness oftentimes. And so we end up ourselves into that dark place. And I think it's very important to discuss this. We're not defined by our pain. We're not defined by our insecurities, our traumas, but it is our responsibility to own them, embody them, and alchemize them into greatness, into light. There's that alchemization process. That's what makes you the magician, the wizard, and really allowing you to manifest and take action in this world. And so I wanted to do a podcast on that. Before we jump into it, if you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you're on. Press the like button if you're on YouTube. Share it out with your friends. Do what you got to do. Shout out to Tranquil Desires because I'm wearing a shirt that says Tranquil Desires. They are in Chamberlain, South Dakota. Basically an unofficial sponsor of this podcast. Shout out to the Tranquil Desires. And you can purchase my book, To Marshal Love Against Tyranny. There's a copy of it behind me, behind my right shoulder over here. It's just a poetic reflection, if you will. I'm working on getting the next poetry collection out there soon enough, just because, I put out one a year. That's sort of my thing, and it explains my own journey and process. There's not as much poetry this year. There has been quite a bit, but I don't know if the next collection will be as large as To Marshal Love Against Tyranny, but there's still a lot of good stuff in there. And I tell people, if you want to know me, you sort of read some of them poems, you'll start understanding where I'm coming from and a perspective I embody. Link to buy that is in the episode show notes, episode description, wherever you're at. Just scroll on down. You know how to get there. You know how to use tech at this point. And yeah, like I said, be sure to subscribe. We got some more great podcasts coming your way in the near future. But I actually want to start by talking about what this dark place is and this need to embrace death first and foremost. You know, when we look at things like suicide, for example, and this is a very touchy subject. I think we all know somebody who we've lost to suicide, or people we have lost to far too soon, or we've all gone through the hardships of death. I certainly have. Um, but in particular, what is death? It is, you could ask the question, what comes first, life or death? What comes first, birth or death? It's really the same energy. It's the yin and yang. It's the light and the dark. When we look at life and we look at death, you can't have death without life, and death is really our only certainty outside of life, right? Within life itself, the only certainty we have is death. And in particular, in Western culture, we've really created a culture that runs from it, is scared of it. We deny its existence, and it's earth-shattering. And all you got to do is go back and listen to the last podcast I did with my brother Tony and hear me talk about my own experience of sitting in with my father as he passed and seeing it firsthand right in front of you. It's a huge wake-up call to have to acknowledge the presence of death. But really, and I heard a great quote one time, it was years ago, we're going to attend 1,000 funerals in our lifetime, and most of them should be our own. We need to continually go through the process of death. And what does that mean? It means to let go of the person we think we are in the ways in which we are accustomed to operating, to become the person we're meant to be. And the paradox of that is that we already are the person we're meant to be. We already are the higher self. Oftentimes, I think the big crux of the spiritual journey, if you will, the ascension process, is it externalizes it as something to achieve instead of something internally to embody, right? We need to do this practice, this practice, this. I need to practice yoga. I need to meditate. I need to do this. I need to do that. in order to become awakened and enlightened. And the reality is, it's just the opposite. You actually need to go through a process of removal, detoxification, physical, mental, and spiritual sense to achieve the higher self. It's about letting go of the pains and the traumas. And this is something I really want to make the point of the podcast. And I'm going to explore all of those subjects that I just talked about. Right. But I think the first thing I want to do is actually read a poem I cooked up the other day. And you got to really be in you got in order to express what the dark place is, in order to um be honest and vulnerable, you need to be willing to sit in it and feel it. Don't run from it by drowning yourself in a bottle. Don't run from it by popping pills. Don't run from it by, lusting over people and doing this and doing that. And, we can't run from our pain. Find healthy ways to express it and alchemize it. It's really what it's all about. And so I wrote a poem. It's called If I Die Tonight. And I hope it can allow you to put a perspective on what I'm talking about here and give a greater sense for life. I haven't even published this poem yet. It's not even out on my Substack. That's what I forgot to say. Go subscribe to my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. Shameless plugging of my own material on here. Um, but the poem is called If I Die Tonight, and I would like to read it to you here. If I die tonight, I can lay to rest, saying I tried to live it right. Despite the burdens and the hardships of my pain, I'd carried forward, knowing the weight behind my name. If I died tonight, I'd like you to know I put up a fight. When picking up the pieces of my shattered heart, I never hid from the world the reality of my scars. If I died tonight, I hope to be remembered like the sun, shining bright. From whispers in the wind to the stars above, you can always feel me through the presence of love. If I die tonight, wipe away the tears and let truth guide your sight. It's okay to cry and let yourself mourn, but trust we are infinite, and soon again I'll be born. If I died tonight, I'd give my final condolences to the game of life. While I was only given a limited time to play, I can accept God's calling on this judgment day. If I die tonight, please take my hand and lead me to the light. Turns out, I've always been afraid to let go. Together, we'll be brave in the moment that I can go home. If I die tonight, I want you to know it's going to be all right. In your heart, I'll live forever, so let yourself move on. The world will keep turning long after I am gone. If I died tonight. Have you ever sat with the possibility of your own death? What the world might look like without you in it? It would carry on. But I do think we really take for granted the importance that we play for the people around us and the people who care about us. Shit, I mean, if I were to die right now, don't bother me, is what it is, bro, like shit. Um, but because I have that mindset, that embodiment where I don't fear it. It'll happen. I know it'll happen. I'm only 28, so I anticipate being here for quite a long time. But there's a lot of things that are out of my control. I'm tired of holding on and refusing to let go. Um, so if it were to happen, it is what it is. I'm not afraid of it. But it allows me to go into life a little bit more unapologetically, owning what it is that I want and who I am, and knowing how I would like to experience this life. I'm there's always going to be hardship. There's always going to be pain. There's always going to be trauma. I can't change what's happened to me. I can't change the past, but I can take a firm look at it and I can acknowledge it and I can choose to move forward and allow me to not be defined by that pain and put it on another's plate. You know, who am I to do that? Is that what I want to be remembered by? No, I want to be remembered for having a good heart, for, you know, being kind, compassionate. You know, I don't view myself as nice. It's funny. I was talking about this the other day with Tony, and I said, bro, I'm not nice. I don't know why all these people think I'm nice. Like, I'm not. I'm really an asshole. I got a lot of terrible things to say. And if you like got to know me on a close level, man, you hear some of those the dark jokes that I come up with, the darkness that uh, you just got to laugh at once in a while. I don't hold back. But I think when you can be compassionate and you can be real with people, most people, they just want to be seen. Hello, little Luna. There she is. She's coming and hang out with us. You know, if you're real, you're going to be authentic. And most of the time, that means you're going to be nice. It's interesting because sometimes there's this idea, people say, oh, I'm blunt. That's why I'm an asshole or this and that. Yeah, yeah, you could be an asshole and you could be blunt, but if you're actually blunt and you're actually straightforward, that means you're also slinging compliments as much as you're slinging, your visceral putting down of people, right? So, there's no need to, how do I say this? There's no need to shy away from being straightforward or be afraid of offending people or be afraid of speaking your mind, especially if you are somebody who is very open about generosity and giving and love and compassion, and you're open about those qualities. But that was kind of a little bit of a tangent on just being compassionate and kind and the way you want to show up in the world. But it comes back to this concept of death, right? Where we need to be willing to let go of the things that no longer serve us because we prevent ourselves from truly healing, from truly living in alignment and manifesting the things that we actually want because we're so attached to the trauma. We're so attached to the pain. We're so attached to these old ways that we are so accustomed to living in. And I actually want to read you a passage that I found on Twitter earlier today. I want to say let me double check just so I can get the name correct on who it came from and give the proper attribution here. It is from Chase Austin on Twitter, and great account, great account. Really hits the nail on the head when we're talking about manifestation and spirituality. Uh, and his insights are phenomenal. So, and I shared this up on my Instagram story, and I think I retweeted it on Twitter too. No, I didn't retweet it. I just liked it. But I'm going to read this to you because it really makes the point that I'm trying to make here in a much more way. This is going to say the point that I want to make, essentially. But here it is. Manifestation is more about letting go than it is about attracting. The universe is always giving. Look at nature. Food is in abundance. The earth is full of fruit, water, and nutrients. The universe is filled with potential soulmates, ways to make money, etc., but you are resisting it all. You may be wondering how you are resisting it, and it's because you won't let go of what is taking its place. The parking spot is filled. You're still in love with or dating some loser. You're scared to leave your 9 to 5 and live with your mom while you build a company or new skills. In life, you have to take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. In car racing, you have to downshift into a lower gear when going through a turn. When your body is sore from the gym, you have to take rest days. The sun even rests at night. You're not willing to slow down. You're not willing to let go. So you block your blessings. There is no devil. You are the devil in your life. A lot of people want to become blessed without any sacrifices being made. You want to live in 2 worlds. You want to stay comfortable while also living an exciting, rich life. It doesn't work like that. You have to be willing to give up control, willing to take some steps back, You want to build a business, but you spend all your time at your 9 to 5. You don't have the time or energy to build your business. So you need to give up one of them. You're chasing two rabbits and expect things to manifest. You must let go. That's from Chase Austin. And I think that is a very much like perfect, spot on representation when we're looking at what it means, when we look at the law of attraction, when we look at creating a life that is abundant, creating a reality for oneself. Um, what sacrifices are you making? What are you letting go of? Can you give up the habits that no longer serve you? Can you give up the idea that you're broke and dependent and uh, full of pain and out of shape and lazy and this and that, anything that you're telling about yourself on the daily, or what your music's telling you, what your news is telling you, what your movies are telling you. You got to shut off the world of noise around you, because that's all it is. Stop taking relationship advice from people in shitty relationships, people who don't aren't in one. You know, uh, stop taking business advice from somebody whose business has failed over and over and over again, unless he's telling you what not to do, right? Stop taking fitness advice from people who are not in shape. Stop thinking that somewhere else is the answers, right? You have the answers. It's all within you, but you're blocking it because you're so caught in that dark place of your mind. It's all mind. Reality is mind. You know, that's all it is. We create our reality through our perception, because what is the brain? It is uh, it is the experience. It gives us the five sensory perception, right? It is our sight, it is our smell, it is our taste, it is our hearing, it is our touch, right? And those are the five senses we tend to relegate. But there are plenty of other sensory perceptions that it allows us to perceive too. And the brain allows us to perceive less than 1% of all of reality. Soak that in. There is over 99% of what is out there you cannot even begin to perceive within your five senses. Okay, that's when we start getting into intuition. We start uh, really tapping into those deeper senses that require you to turn off the mind and let go of the need to define your reality by these five sensory perceptions and programs that this world, the matrix, this womb of creation of society around us, of what it's telling you. What is culture? Let's break down the word C-U-L-T, cult. It is a point of worship. It is what we have created and come to worship as truth, when the reality is just a manifestation of our choices and our priorities. Do you align with those values and the priorities of culture? If you don't, why are you still following it and defining yourself by those priorities and those values? Are you beginning to pick up what I'm putting down here? You got to go against the grain. You got to go against what it is that you think is holding you back. You know, are you really going to continue to be defined by the ways of old, by what society is placing upon you, by the traumas that may have happened when you were young and growing up? And that's not to discredit those things. They're very real. They are very real, and you need to acknowledge and you need to sit in them, especially if you've been running away from them. You need to feel it in order to heal it. You need to feel it. Don't mask it. Don't run from it. Because how do you expect to get better? How do you expect to even be willing to understand it, to let go? That's the creation of wisdom, right? That's the creation of true wisdom, at least. It's the experience. It's not just the experience, it's the reflection upon the experience. And, because what life ends up doing is it'll give you the same scenario over and over. It'll give you opportunities to grow, but it's going to test you. It's going to tempt you, the devilish temptations, as I call it, to fall back into the ways of old, to act the previous ways in which you did. And those temptations, they might come externally, but a lot of times they're just in your own mind. You're going to see something in somebody that triggers your previous response. And you're going to go and you're going to want to create that very same reality as before, right? Do you see the role that you have in this, a co-creative process with the universe, right? But if you decide to show up in a totally new way, let's say you set new boundaries. Let's say you have direct conversations. Let's say you're real and you're authentic and you clearly state and define, this is what I've been through. This is where I want to go and what I tolerate. I don't do the old anymore. What do you think is going to happen? Whatever was expecting you to be defined by the old, whatever is expecting you to fall back to those devilish temptations, it's going to fall by the wayside. That's how it works, right? So the universe will support you in this co-creative process. You got to actually be willing to set up those boundaries for yourself. You got to actually be willing to go through this. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Manifestation isn't just sitting there praying and hoping without any action. Hope is a poor man's plea. Not that I've given up on hope, but man, hope is so like it's so faulty. You're gonna rely on hope alone. Hope, as Dick Gregory said, hope ain't gonna pay your fucking rent. Hope ain't gonna get you to Paris. Hope, hope. I don't need hope. Dealing in hope. No, no. That's a great interview that he had. Check it out, Dick Gregory interview. I'm blanking on the page there, the person he did it with, so that might not help you. But if you look up hope and you look up Dick Gregory, that's a great little rant about hope. Because I feel the same way. Hope is a poor man's plea. So what good are my prayers for change? I got a poem on that, and I think it's into Marshal Love Against Tyranny. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. It might be in my next poetry collection. Um, if it is in here, I'll read it to you. If not, then I'm not gonna go and dig it out just because that's it takes a little extra steps. But I don't think it's in here. I think it's in my it's gonna be in my next poetry collection. If hope is a poor man's plea, what good are my prayers for change? Well, you get what I'm saying, right? You gotta be willing to take action. And I think from that, you can choose to live in a space of vitality. But from that vitality, you can't become content within the fruits of your new blessings. You need to continue to be willing to build, to grow, because becoming self-actualized, embodying that inner light and shining out upon the darkness, it's a continual process, right? We are never truly complete. But the paradox of that is we are always complete. We are always growing. Yet we are both healing and healed at the same time. There's a paradox. That's the duality. Uh, and duality is a part of man, right? What are the chains that bind you? What are the swords that bind you? Because your greatest strength is also usually forged from your greatest pains, from your greatest traumas, from the things that you run from. What do you view as a crux? What do you view as something that you need to change about yourself? Maybe instead of trying to change, what you need to do is reevaluate your relationship with this devil in disguise, right? And alchemize it. Okay, you have an addictive personality. Great. Let's become addicted to the right things. Right? Let's become addicted to the self-actualization. Let's become addicted to writing. Let's become addicted to working out. That's what I am. I can't keep myself away from the gym. I try to. There's days I should rest and I'm like, Church of Iron sounds real good right now. Let me lift. Let me work out. And I'll if I go in there, I go to the capability that I think I can get to, but sometimes I push past that, and I'm glad I did. So, you got to be willing to hone in on the fact that you're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have things that you can look at and grow and change, but at the same time, you need to have a self-acceptance. I think the true crux of the spiritual journey is, and I alluded to this earlier with the idea of ascension So many people want to self-improve, but nobody wants to self-accept. Maybe you don't need to improve right now. Maybe you just need to accept yourself for who you are. I think we all know who we are, and we just don't want to accept it, and we run from it. And so even with spirituality, we create it as a form of ego. It's like a facade, an illusion, a wall that we put up that prevents us uh, from actually going in and looking at what it is that we need to work on and what it is that we need to deal with. It's very easy to take upon that mindset. And I think right now, to actually get a deeper understanding on what it is that we need to look at, it kind of comes back to reconnecting with the inner child, reconnecting with our innocence. And I'm going to speak on what society does to our innocence in a minute, but I want you to reconnect with your own inner child first. So take a moment. This will be a little bit of a meditative process, I suppose. Obviously, if you're driving and listen to this, you ain't closing your eyes. Please don't. You drive off the road because of what I'm doing. That's gonna be real sad. But this is a little. Let's play a little visualization game here. Take a moment to really come in conscious awareness of your breath, your breathing. And I'm gonna do this with you guys. So one more. Don't think you're doing it alone. I'm right here with you. Um, but really come into focus awareness with the breath, with your body, with your surroundings first. This is the foundation for any meditative practice. Before doing any of the visuals, before doing any of the ascension, you don't need to ascend, you need to ground. You're here, you're safe, you're free. You ain't in a cage except for the one that's the prison of your own mind. Here we are. So continue to breathe. You can close your eyes if you would like. Sometimes that can help us ground into our body and really feel into our body, but if you're not comfortable doing that, you can keep them open. It's okay. You don't need to close your eyes, but I want you to start breathing into the space that is your heart. We all know where our heart is, and I think we have this image of the heart as, it pumps blood through the body and this and that. But I'm going to talk the spiritual heart here. It's in the same spot, but your heart chakra. Really feel into that space of love, of gratitude, gratitude for your own being, who you are. The heart is the space within us that connects us, the higher and the lower realms, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, connecting through the throat, the third eye, and the crown, all connected by the heart. It is our center. It is the foundation for who we are, both light and dark. Because love always leads to grief. And through the grief, we come back to love. It's all the same. So really hold space in your heart. And I want you to bring into mind and bring into heart as if you were 5, 6, 7, childlike wonder. As if you were a little kid again, and that explorative, loving child that you were, before the cruelty and brutality of the world really took a chokehold on you, really binded you, really put pressure on you. And, that's going to be at a different time for all of us when that happens. Some of us have to grow up a lot quicker. Some of us can maintain that innocence a little bit longer, but at some point, the world came and took that innocence from you. But the reality is that it didn't go anywhere. You created the ego as a result of this attempt to snatch your innocence. And what that ego did is it protected you. It protected that innocent child from the cruel, harsh realities of the world. That child is still in there. You know it is. And you can still feel it and you can tap into it at any time. So really, really honor and tap into that childlike spirit and that imagination and that innocence and just feel it. There's nothing you need to do except feel it and embrace it. It's as if your child self is right in front of you if you close your eyes. It's ready to love, ready to play, ready to explore, see where it wants to take you. Maybe it just needs nurture. Little you just needs love. Just feel that and embrace whatever it is you need to do with your inner child. And I want you to really sit in this space for a minute. Don't run from it. We don't need to run from our innocence, as I know it hurts to have your innocence snatched up. I know it hurts to be taken advantage of because you try and be light and you try to spread light. I know it hurts. But you don't need to run from that anymore. Tell your inner child that you are safe to express. You are free to be you. And you don't need to hold on anymore. No need to hide. Give gratitude, give love. Embrace your inner child as if you were giving the warmest, most beautiful, loving hug imaginable. Touch of comfort. This space of innocence, this space of purity is always available within us. Now I want you to come back into your body, come back into breathing into your heart, and just be present, through the rest of this podcast, through the rest of our time together here, and continue to allow that feeling of innocence and nurture to guide your being, even after this ends. Um, like maybe that means sitting with yourself a little extra today, finding something that'll be able to express that. Maybe it's going out and playing. Maybe it's out being in the sunshine. Maybe it's journaling. Whatever it is that you feel you need to do, I would take the extra time for you to do it today. Really give yourself that space. I think it's important to honor that when we feel called to it. Um, but that innocence, ultimately, that's what all of this spiritual work, that's what all of this growth, that's what all of this healing, that's what it's trying to point us back to reclaim who we are, and we're never going to be fully innocent all the time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be driven by ego. We're going to be driven by our fight or flight. We're going to get triggered. It's not some testament to who you are if you make a mistake. In fact, it's more of a testament to who you are when you can honor and own that and embrace the fact, hey, I'm not perfect. So really be present with yourself. Unfortunately, like I was saying, at some point, all of us go through trauma to where we create this wall, this ego, as a defense mechanism for our inner child, as a defense mechanism against the perceived harsh realities of the world. And it's something we all do. It's a result of our culture. It's because we don't have the proper upbringing that fosters our spirit and honors our expression. And I think this new way of being that we talk about when we're talking about awakening and a new paradigm, it's about bringing and preserving this feeling within our youth, within the next generations, and teaching people to heal and grow so that they can spread light from a place of authenticity and purity. When I sit here and I talk about the dark place and I talk about the darkness and we go into some of the deep, deep rabbit holes, I'm still maintaining my connection to my purity as a way to ground me and shine light upon the darkness because I couldn't do it otherwise. I'd be afraid. Sometimes I still am afraid, and that's okay. But it's courage that we need. We don't need to run from fear. We just need to embody a little bit of courage. And when we can tap into that childlike spirit, that wonder, that exploration, Fear goes by the wayside. Kids will do anything. You know, they there's no hesitation, there's no fear, right? And they're much wiser than many adults oftentimes because we as adults tend to harden up and really put on this shell, this put up this wall, put up this illusion, right? And we don't want people to see us. We don't want people to call out or whatever it may be, right? We don't like that. So we yearn to return to innocence. We yearn to return to youth. And ultimately, our culture and this materialist paradigm is meant to disconnect us from our body, from our mind, from our spirit. That's what the technocratic revolution is all about. It's what technology, the path of AI, and connecting artificial intelligence to the human brain, and Elon Musk with Neuralink, and getting trapped into the vortex that is social media. That's what it's all about. It's about disconnecting you from your inner self, right? The internet is just a manifestation of the ether. There are such positives to it, such pros to it. We can really use it as a tool for global interconnectivity. And what's interesting is there's a deep spiritual truth to the idea of oneness throughout the world. And I think we're already living under a one world government, unfortunately, uh, disguised as sovereign nations, but they all report to the same people. There are vast networks that operate behind the scenes that connect all governments. And you see around the world when there's a rogue leader and is not interested in following that paradigm, they're usually vilified and later taken out, put on trial or assassinated or whatever it might be. That's how it works. Um, really, the design here is to disconnect the human spirit and usher in control for a system. We are indoctrinated to be cogs of the machine instead of becoming our own machine, instead of becoming our own actualized self, instead of being self-sufficient. We don't need people ruling over us. We need to be in harmony and in communion, and as communities come to decisions that are going to benefit one another. But that doesn't mean we need centralization of power on a global scale. Quite the opposite. We can be interconnected globally without having global governance and without having centralized structures. We don't need that. We need to maintain our individual sovereignty and respect the fact that every area has its own culture, its own values, its own ideals. We can't have a global culture because what that does is it creates a global value system, and it essentially, we talk about diversity, we talk about all of these things um, in the public sphere as if we're working towards that as we move towards, you know, all these people migrating here and this and that and all the political talking points of whatever it may be, left wing, right wing, don't matter. It's all the same, two wings of the same bird. But, we talk about diversity, and it's really an illusion that we're creating diversity when diversity of thought is vilified, diversity of difference and within a cultural and moral framework is vilified. You really need to accept the standard state of thinking. Otherwise, you don't, there's an accepted bandwidth of thought. You can be here and you can be here, but you can't be over here. Can't be outside of in between those two. You got to be in between. You got to fall somewhere in there. So when that bandwidth is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking as the imperialistic venture, if you will, because our world is built on imperialism. It's built on expansion. It's really turned inward and it's taken a cannibalistic approach and it's imperializing the mind. Because what else is there left? Certainly, you could argue that there is more land, maybe past Antarctica. That's a deep rabbit hole that we're not going to go down right now. Do your own research. Look up what Admiral Byrd was talking about when he went on his Antarctic expedition. But it don't really matter if we're just going to take the imperialistic mindset anyways, is just do the same thing over there. But the imperialism is, it's colonizing our mind. That's what the Matrix is all about. That's what this new era of technology is all about. And there's already technology out there that through EMF, through whatever, the radio waves and the electromagnetic field, that you can implant thoughts through magnetic waves like that. That's been proven to exist. The CIA has plenty of documents on that, and experiments that they were able to implant thoughts into mice, right? And you think that they're not willing to do that to people? Of course they are. So we need to be very, very mindful about the type of thoughts that we are having, about the what it is that we are putting our energy into, what it is that we are actually supporting through our actions, and not allow ourselves to create a wall that excludes, not create a, and I talk about that on an individual standpoint. I ain't talking global, I ain't talking politics, I ain't talking none of that. I'm talking on an individual standpoint. We need to be willing to break down our walls and let people in and trust. And if people start imperializing and colonizing and stealing your freedom and not let you be who you need to be, then let them go and put up your boundary and say, this is firm. This boundary is firm. You are not doing this. That's freedom. That's freedom. You can't let people walk all over you. So it's about finding balance. Went a little bit on a tangent in a sense in global affairs, but that's, it all connects. It all connects because the micro reflects the macro and vice versa, right? You need to be very aware both within yourself, who you are, and then what it is that we are creating as one being, because you could look at a forest. And I've said this on the podcast. I said this on the last podcast. All the roots underneath the forest of each individual tree are all interconnected and they feed one another. And we do the same thing because it is an illusion. We are physical beings and we are all connected on an energetic level. That's why you can have a thought and think of somebody, and then that person texts you right then and there. You could argue that's telepathic communication if you wanted to use those words. People don't like saying that. But that's thought form in action. Our thoughts create reality. And you are far more powerful than you can even begin to realize. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, your life is a direct result of your own thoughts, of your own projections, of your own decisions. And you need to take radical responsibility for that so you can turn darkness into light. We are indoctrinated into this culture with, as a being, creating darkness. The darkness of the world is what fuels our systems in many ways, right? There are light beings within there, and there is light within it, certainly. There are pros and cons to everything. But are you feeding into chaos? Are you feeding into division? Are you feeding in to what it is that you claim to be against? Because ultimately, the things that you're going to say you hate somebody for, realistically, you're reacting so strongly because those things live within you and you don't want to recognize it. Right? It's like when somebody has a deep visceral reaction to Donald Trump. And I'm very neutral on Donald Trump. Donald Trump's Donald Trump. He's pretty funny, but I ain't voting, so it don't matter to me. And you could say that's irresponsible. I'm not a I don't buy into the illusion of politics, of federal especially. I believe in independent, empowered decisions and locally empowered decisions. Federally, I don't believe in federal. I don't think the government should exist at that level. You should probably abolish every single, Department of Education, CIA, FBI, IRS, all those things. Get rid of all of them. We don't need any of them. And people will be like, "Oh my goodness, that's anarchy." No, it's not. There's there's a deep wisdom and deep truth in self-sufficiency and taking responsibility within your own community and what it is that you want and stand for. So that's a rant. We don't need to get into that. But uh, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have a visceral reaction to Donald Trump, well, what is it about Donald Trump that you don't like? And what is it about Donald Trump that you see within yourself? Right? A lot of people who are super anti-Trump don't want to answer that question. They don't want to acknowledge, damn, maybe I'm cocky. Damn, maybe I'm narcissistic. Maybe I have a big ego. Maybe I'm impulsive when I don't get what I want, right? So, what are the swords that bind you? Where do you fall on your own sword? Because we all do it. None of us are perfect, but that's what makes us perfect. The imperfections leads to perfection. It's from the chaos that order and beauty can emerge. And that's what self-responsibility is all about. That's how you navigate yourself out of the dark place. That's how you accept the fact that this life, and this comes full circle here, that's how you accept the fact that this life is meant to be lived. You are meant to explore the darkness. You are meant to go inward. You are meant to experience what you've experienced. You are meant to experience pain, hardship, because none of the beautiful things would matter if you didn't have something to the opposite polarity to compare it to. It's the yin and the yang, the dark and the light, and it's as timeless and cliche as you want to call it. It's the truth. The simplest things are usually where the deepest truths lie, and you can go deep, deep, deep into that. As you can see in the studio here, the theme of the studio and apartment is sun and moon. What better representation of the yin and yang? All right, the yin and yang in the tattoo right here, in there. So just some thoughts to really keep in mind. And, I think it's a great opportunity right now to work on alchemizing your pain and really begin to hone in on your manifestation process and start making sacrifices. Let go. Let go. You don't need to hold on anymore. Seize control. It's this need for control, this need for love, this need for this, and that, whatever it is. Do you think you need? Let it go. Accept what is. It's as simple as that. Really come into your own body, to who you are, be present, be mindful, be aware. This game is so much bigger than we can even begin to fathom. So stop pretending you know what the fuck you're doing. None of us do. None of us do. We think we do sometimes. And I think there's things we think we gotta grasp on, but even when we think we gotta grasp on it, life usually has a way to humble us. And that's perfectly fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's not meant to be easy all the time. It's not going to be easy all the time. And that's just fine. That's beautiful. So if you're in the dark place, I will say this. It's gonna be all right. I don't I can't say it's all gonna fall into place. I can't say, you know, I can't give you any promises, really. But at the end of the day, this game is so much bigger than you can even begin to realize that you just need to start trusting yourself. Trust that you have the ability to navigate this. Trust the fact that you are an empowered individual who has the ability to make your own choices and can create whatever life that you want. You just got to want it. You got to want to let go of what no longer serves you. If you like being in a dark place, you're going to stay there. That's fine. That's your choice too. I can't force you to move on. I can't force you to let go. I can't force you to choose light. I can't force you to choose me or anything. And, if you're what I'm telling you to do right now is you feel like it's infringing upon your free will, well, self-reflect, navigate, find your own path. There is no one set path except for owning your authenticity and owning what you believe in yourself and believe to be true and acknowledging that, you know, there's so much more to learn. There's so much more to explore. There's no easy way out of it because if there were, we'd all take that path. And when we try to shortcut, it usually backfires and just creates more turmoil. When we choose to not trust ourselves or we choose to not let other people in and we choose to be the lone wolf when the reality is that we got people around us who are willing to help and help us navigate, that's when we tend to fall further into the darkness. And that's why people leave. That's why people choose to exit. They say, you know what, this is all I can do to get out of here. So we can't do it on our own. There's only so much we can do on our own. And you are capable of quite a lot. You really are. You are incredibly strong-willed and incredibly powerful beyond belief to create whatever life that you want. But you got to start by owning it. Just start there. Sit within yourself, how you can foster your innocence, foster your spirit, foster your life, and it'll all fall into place from there. That's really all I can tell you. But that's gonna about wrap up this episode. I ain't really got much more than that. I think I covered all the bases. Went on a few rants that I didn't expect to go on. Uh, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope there's some things you can take from this. And because I got a lot to reflect on myself. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting. And I can say that I'm willing to be in my pain and willing to be in the hardship. And it's not always easy, but it's there. Might as well fucking own it, right? So let's go wrap up this episode. I'll see you all next time.